You have been playing fair in a game that was never designed to reward fairness. You have been following the rules in environments where the people beating you are following their own. You have been honest when honesty cost you. Direct when directness gave them the advance notice they needed to position against you. Clean when clean meant predictable, and predictable meant manageable, and manageable meant controlled. And the results of all that fairness, all that directness, all that spotless moral positioning are sitting in front of you right now. Which is why you are watching this video, instead of living the outcome that the fairness was supposed to produce. The fairness did not produce it. The fairness produced this: a person who is smart enough to see the game, principled enough to play it by rules that nobody else is following, and frustrated enough to finally ask the question that brings you here tonight. What if the rules you have been following are the reason you have been losing? Machiavelli answered that question 500 years ago. He said it simply, and he said it once. A man who wishes to profess goodness at all times will come to ruin among so many who are not good. That is not an argument for becoming evil. It is the most honest assessment ever written of what happens to a good person who refuses to develop the strategic capability that the environment they are operating in requires. The good person does not need to become bad. The good person needs to become complete. Complete means willing to use the full range of psychological tools available, not just the clean ones that feel comfortable, but the precise ones, the cold ones, the ones that the fair player has been refusing to pick up because picking them up felt like becoming something they did not want to become. My friend, I need you to hear something before I give you the laws. The game you have been losing is not the game you think you have been losing. You think you have been losing because the other person is stronger, more connected, more willing to do the things you are not willing to do. That is not why you have been losing. You have been losing because you have been playing an incomplete version of yourself against a complete version of them. They are using everything available. You are using only what your self-image permits. And the gap between everything available and what your self-image permits is the exact space through which your defeat enters. Every time. The gap is the vulnerability. Close the gap and the vulnerability disappears. Not because you became a different person, because you became the full version of the person you already are. This video gives you 7 laws for playing the game as it actually exists, rather than as you wish it existed. Not 7 laws for becoming dishonest. 7 laws for becoming strategically complete. Fearless enough to move when the fear says hold. Dirty enough to use the tools that the situation requires rather than the tools that your self-image permits. And mentally sharp enough to outplay anyone who thought your fairness meant you were not paying attention. Before I start, the last law in this video is the one that makes every other law permanent. Miss it, and the rest fades within a week. Stay to the very end. If you are ready to stop losing to people who play the game you refuse to play, comment the words "I play to win." Like this video because every like puts it in front of someone who is still losing, because they are still playing clean in a dirty game. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. And drop your location and the time right now. This community is real, and right now it matters who is here. Law 1. Fear is data, not a stop sign. The fearless person is not the one who does not feel fear. It is the one who reads what the fear is saying and moves through it rather than obeying it. Machiavelli once observed that the man who avoids every difficulty also avoids every opportunity, because the two are found in the same places. That observation contains the seed of everything this first law is about. Fear and opportunity are not located in different parts of your life. They share an address. The conversation you are afraid to have is the conversation that would change the dynamic you have been enduring. The decision you are afraid to make is the decision that would reposition you in the environment that has been taking more from you than it gives. The move you are afraid to execute is the move that the person operating against you is most afraid you will make. Fear does not point toward danger exclusively. It points toward significance. And the person who can read that signal, who can distinguish between fear that says this will harm you and fear that says this will change everything, is the person who moves when everyone else freezes. Most people obey fear. They feel the activation in the body, and they interpret the activation as the instruction to stop. Machiavelli would never obey fear without first interrogating it. Here is what he would do. He would feel the fear arrive, because he was human and fear is not optional for human beings. And then he would ask one question before the fear made the decision for him. Is this fear protecting me from genuine danger, or is it protecting me from the discomfort of change? If the answer is genuine danger, the fear is valid and the stopping is correct. If the answer is discomfort of change, the fear is a signal that something significant is on the other side of the action it is trying to prevent. And significant things, the things that actually move your position, are always on the other side of discomfort. That is where they live. And the person who is willing to move through the discomfort to reach them is the person who arrives at the places that the fear-obeying person only imagines. Here is a specific practice. The next time fear arrives in response to a decision you are considering, write down two things. First, what is the worst realistic outcome if I act? Not the catastrophic fantasy, the realistic worst case. Second, what is the cost of not acting? What does the continued avoidance cost me in positioning, in peace, in the slow accumulation of tolerance that the avoidance is producing? In most cases, the cost of not acting exceeds the worst realistic outcome of acting. And that math, that simple, honest, fear-interrogating math, is the thing that converts fear from a stop sign into a data point. Data points are information. Information is power. And power, in the Machiavellian sense, is not about eliminating fear. It is about making fear work for you rather than against you. Let me tell you what happens on the other side of the fear you have been obeying, the conversation you have been avoiding. On the other side of it is the clarity you have been craving, the decision you have been postponing. On the other side of it is the positioning you have been losing, the move you have been too afraid to make. On the other side of it is the version of your life that the fear has been preventing you from reaching. Every act of fear obedience is a vote for the status quo. And the status quo, my friend, is the thing that brought you to this video. Machiavelli put this in terms so sharp they have not dulled in 500 years. He said, "It is better to act and repent than to not act and regret." That is not recklessness. That is the specific recognition that the cost of action, even action that produces an imperfect outcome, is almost always lower than the cost of the inaction that fear produces. Because action produces outcomes. Outcomes produce information. Information produces the next better action. And the cycle of acting, learning, and acting again is the cycle that builds every form of power, positioning, and genuine security available to any human being. Inaction produces none of those things. Inaction produces only the comfortable stagnation that feels like safety and functions as slow erosion. Let me give you a specific scenario that makes this real. You have been wanting to leave a professional situation that has been costing you more than it returns. The fear says stay. The fear says the alternative is uncertain. The fear says what you have, however insufficient, is safer than what you do not yet have. And every day you obey that fear, the cost of staying compounds while the opportunity to leave narrows. Because leaving is easier today than tomorrow, and tomorrow than next month, and next month than next year. The fear tells you the opposite. The fear says, wait. Wait for the right moment. Wait for the safe transition. Wait until the leaving feels comfortable. But here is what Machiavelli understood about comfortable leaving. It does not exist. There is no moment where the leaving feels easy. There is only the moment where the math, the honest, fear-interrogated, clearly seen math, says the cost of staying has exceeded the cost of going. And that moment, for most people, passed a long time ago. The fear just hit it. Comment: I read my fear before I obey it if this shifted how you relate to the next decision you have been avoiding. Law 2. Play dirty means using the tools that fair players refuse to pick up: information, timing, patience, and the willingness to let the other person believe they are winning while you reposition everything. My friend, let me redefine the word dirty for you, because the definition you have been operating with is the one that has been costing you. Dirty does not mean dishonest. Dirty does not mean cruel. Dirty does not mean becoming the person you are trying to defend yourself against. Dirty means complete. It means being willing to use the full range of strategic tools that the situation provides, rather than limiting yourself to the narrow range that your self-image permits. The fair player uses logic, directness, and transparent communication. Those are fine tools. But they are 3 tools. The complete player uses those plus information gathered quietly, timing calibrated precisely, patience deployed ruthlessly, and the specific willingness to let the other person misread the situation in ways that serve the complete player's positioning. That is not dishonesty. That is the intelligent management of what the room sees and what the room does not see. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must know how to act as a beast, and among beasts he must learn from the fox and the lion. The lion fights openly. The fox avoids the traps. Most people have been trained to be lions, to fight openly, to confront directly, to make their moves visible because visibility felt like integrity. Machiavelli would tell you that the lion who does not learn from the fox will walk into traps that the fox would have avoided. Not because the lion lacks strength, because the lion lacks awareness of what is being laid in front of him, while he is focused on the direct confrontation that the trap was designed to produce. Here is a specific example that will make this immediately real. Someone in your professional environment has been undermining you. Your lion instinct says, confront, address it directly, name the behavior, make the accusation, and force the accountability. That approach feels strong, it feels like integrity, and it gives the other person exactly 3 things: advance notice that you have detected what they are doing, time to prepare their defense, and the narrative framework to position your confrontation as the aggressive act and their original behavior as something you misread. The dirty approach, the complete approach, looks different. You do not confront. You document. You build relationships with the allies who are currently in the other person's orbit. You let the other person's behavior continue while you quietly construct the conditions under which that behavior will become visible to the people whose assessment matters. You let time work. You let evidence accumulate. And when the moment arrives, when the conditions are right, and the evidence is sufficient, and the audience is aligned, the truth surfaces not because you announced it, but because you arranged the stage on which it could announce itself. That is playing dirty. Not lying, not manipulating. Using the full range, picking up the tools that the fair player left on the table, and deploying them with the specific, cold, precise discipline that produces outcomes while the fair player is still drafting their confrontation speech. Machiavelli would say to you, it is not enough to be good. You must be capable of not being good when the situation requires it. That capability is not corruption. It is completeness. And completeness is the only thing that protects goodness in a world that does not reward goodness on its own. Let me tell you something about this law that goes to the heart of what Machiavelli was trying to teach. He was not trying to turn good people into bad ones. He was trying to prevent good people from being destroyed by the specific limitation that their goodness imposes: the unwillingness to use certain tools. Machiavelli saw men of genuine virtue, men who cared about their cities, their people, their commitments, get annihilated by men who cared about nothing except winning. And the annihilation was not produced by the bad men's strength. It was produced by the good men's incompleteness. They had the capability, they had the intelligence, they had the character, but they did not have the willingness to match the bad men's tools with tools of equal precision. And the unwillingness, which they called integrity, was the specific gap through which their defeat entered. Machiavelli observed, "It is necessary for a prince who wishes to maintain his position to learn how not to be good. That does not mean be evil. That means be capable of operating across the full range of what the situation requires. Good when good works. Strategic when good does not. Complete rather than limited. That is the dirty play. And it is dirty only from the perspective of someone who has defined cleanliness so narrowly that the definition excludes the tools that the survival requires." Comment, "I pick up every tool available if this just expanded what you are willing to use." Machiavelli made another observation that bridges this second law into the third. He said that the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. You have been the lion, strong, direct, honest, and the traps have been catching you because lions do not see traps. Law 3 teaches you the fox. Law 3. Let them think you are playing their game while you are playing a completely different one. Machiavelli observed something that most people never grasp about competitive dynamics. The person who defines the game controls the game, and the person who lets someone else define the game is playing on someone else's terrain, by someone else's rules, for someone else's objectives. You have been doing this. Someone in your life set the terms of the competition. They defined what winning looks like. They established the criteria by which success is measured. And you accepted the definition without questioning whether the definition served you or served them. You started competing in a game you did not design. And the game, because it was designed by someone else, was designed for someone else to win. Here is the dirty play. Let them believe you are competing in their game. Let them see you showing up. Let them register your presence in the competition they defined. And while their attention is focused on the scoreboard they built, the metrics they chose, the victories they are tracking, build your own game in the space they are not watching. A different set of objectives, a different definition of winning, a different outcome entirely that does not depend on their scoreboard and cannot be affected by their strategy, because their strategy is aimed at a game you are only pretending to play. Most people compete where the competition is visible. Machiavelli would never compete where the competition is visible because visible competition attracts preparation. He would compete in the space that no one is watching. He would build in the direction that no one is guarding. He would define his own victory in terms that the other person does not know exist and therefore cannot position against. Here is a specific scenario. A colleague is competing with you for visibility with senior leadership. They are taking credit, positioning themselves in meetings, building the narrative that they are the high performer. Your old approach was to compete on the same scoreboard, to fight for the same credit, to position yourself in the same meetings, to build the counter-narrative that you are the actual high performer. That approach puts you in a competition on their terrain. Machiavelli would step off the terrain entirely. He would stop competing for visibility with the same senior leaders and start building a relationship with a different set of decision-makers, the ones the colleague is not watching, the ones whose influence will matter more in 6 months than the ones who matter now. While the colleague is winning the current game, you are building the next one. And the next game, because you designed it, is the one you arrive at fully positioned while the colleague does not even know it exists. Here is a Machiavelli proverb that will make this law permanent in your mind. He wrote, "Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception." Now hear that word deception correctly. In this context, deception does not mean lying. It means misdirection. It means letting the competition believe the game is being played on their terrain, while you are quietly building on terrain they are not watching. It means the strategic management of attention. Theirs pointed at the game they designed. Yours pointed at the game you are constructing in the space they are not guarding. The force player, the person who competes directly, openly on the terrain the opponent chose, spends everything and may or may not win. The misdirection player, the person who lets the opponent focus on the wrong game, wins by arriving at the outcome from a direction the opponent was not defending. Same objective, completely different cost. And cost, my friend, is what determines whether your strategy is sustainable or whether it burns you out before the outcome arrives. Comment, I define my own game if this just changed how you see the competition you have been accepting without questioning who designed it. Law 4. Use their assumption of your weakness as the cover for your positioning. My friend Machiavelli made an observation about human nature that is so precise it functions as a law of physics in social dynamics. He said that men are so simple of mind and so much dominated by their immediate needs that a deceiver will always find someone willing to be deceived. Now, before you hear that as a license to deceive, hear what it actually means for you as the person being underestimated. The people who are underestimating you right now, who see your quietness as weakness, your patience as passivity, your restraint as inability, are deceiving themselves. You did not create the deception. Their own assumptions did, and their assumptions, once installed, become the cover under which your genuine positioning can proceed without interference. Most people fight underestimation. They correct the record. They make their capability visible. They ensure that the room knows what they are capable of before the moment arrives when the capability needs to be deployed. Machiavelli would never fight underestimation. He would use it, because the underestimated person has something that the accurately estimated person does not: invisibility. And invisibility, in any competitive environment, is the most valuable form of protection available. The person the room does not consider a threat is the person the room does not prepare against. And the person the room does not prepare against is the person who arrives at the decisive moment with the full advantage of surprise. Here is what this looks like in practice. You are in an environment where someone has decided you are not a factor. They have categorized you as harmless, as passive, as someone who does not play the game at the level they play it. That categorization feels insulting. Your instinct says correct it. Show them who you are. Make the capability undeniable. Machiavelli would tell you very directly, do not correct it. Let them carry that assumption into every interaction. Let them operate from the comfortable confidence that you are not a factor. And use the space that their confidence creates, the unguarded space, the unprotected territory, the specific openings that they would have closed if they had taken you seriously, to position yourself for the move they will not see coming because they were too busy watching the people they considered threats. The assumption of your weakness is not your enemy. It is your camouflage. And camouflage, in any environment where the competition is actively defending against visible threats, is worth more than any display of strength. Let me give you a specific scenario that will make this immediately usable. You are new to an organization. The room has not yet formed its assessment of you. This is the most valuable window in any professional transition because the assessment has not yet been locked in. Most people spend this window advocating, making their capability visible as fast as possible, ensuring the room knows what they bring, fighting the anonymity that newness produces. Machiavelli would spend this window differently. He would let the room form its own assessment without interference. He would observe, he would gather, he would map the alliances, the power structures, the unspoken dynamics that govern who gets what and why. And he would do all of this under the cover of being the new person who is still figuring things out, which is the most effective camouflage available in any professional environment, because it is expected and therefore invisible. By the time the room has decided that you are harmless, by the time the assumption of your weakness is fully installed, you have something that the visible advocate does not. You have the complete picture. The alliance is mapped, the power structure decoded, the unspoken dynamics understood. And the first move you make from that position, the first deployment of the capability that the room did not know you had, lands with the combined force of surprise and precision. The surprise because they did not see it coming. The precision because you spent the camouflage period gathering the information that makes precision possible. Machiavelli said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Very few experience what you actually are. Let them see the appearance. Let them build their assumptions on the appearance. And let the reality arrive at the moment when the reality produces the maximum impact." I wear their assumptions as camouflage if this reframed how you see the room's underestimation of you. Law 5. Never fight the battle they prepared for. Change the battlefield entirely. Machiavelli wrote that the wise man does not always try to avoid the storm, but to redirect it. That principle, applied to the specific dynamics you are navigating right now, changes everything about how you engage with the people who are operating against you. They have prepared for a specific battle. They have rehearsed the arguments they expect you to make. They have built the defense against the approach they believe you will take. They have positioned their allies, prepared their narrative, and scripted the responses to the confrontation they are certain is coming. Their preparation is thorough. Their readiness is genuine. And their entire strategy depends on one assumption, that you will fight the battle they prepared for. Do not fight it. Change the battlefield. Most people walk into the confrontation they were expected to walk into because the confrontation feels like the honest thing to do. The issue is here. The disagreement is here. The fight should happen here. Machiavelli would look at that and say, here is exactly where they want you to be, because here is where they are strongest. Here is where they have prepared. Here is where the terrain is shaped in their favor. The dirty play, the strategically complete play, is to refuse the terrain, to show up somewhere the preparation does not cover, to raise an issue the defense was not built for, to shift the conversation to a dimension that the scripted responses cannot address because the script was written for a different conversation entirely. Here is a specific example. Someone has been building a case against your competence. They have been collecting examples, framing narratives, positioning allies who will confirm the picture they have constructed. They are ready for the performance review confrontation. They have the evidence organized. They have the talking points prepared. They are waiting for you to walk into the room and defend your competence on the terrain they have prepared. Do not walk into that room. Instead, walk into a different room. Start a new project that is so visible and so undeniably excellent that the competence question answers itself before the prepared confrontation can be deployed. Change the conversation from your historical performance to your current output. Shift the terrain from where they are strong to where you are strong. And let the prepared case, the evidence, the narrative, the carefully positioned allies sit unused because the battlefield it was built for no longer exists. Before I move to Law 6, I want to be direct with you. The next two laws are where this shifts from tactical to structural, from specific moves to the permanent positioning that makes specific moves unnecessary, because the room has already been arranged in your favor. Subscribe right now. Hit the notification bell. Stay. Because laws 6 and 7 are where this shifts from moves you make to the permanent positioning that makes specific moves unnecessary. Machiavelli wrote something about this law that will stay with you permanently if you let it. He said, "The wise captain avoids battle with a furious foe, but offers battle to a sluggish one." What that means for you is this: do not fight where the other person is prepared. Do not engage on terrain they have optimized. Do not show up for the confrontation they rehearsed. Find the terrain where they are sluggish, where their preparation does not cover, where their alliances do not reach, where their narrative has no pre-built framework, and offer the engagement there. On that terrain, your preparation exceeds theirs. On that terrain, your positioning is the one that was chosen rather than the one that was forced. And on that terrain, the outcome is determined not by who fought harder, but by who chose the battlefield more intelligently. Let me give you one more example of this that goes beyond the professional level. You are in a relationship where arguments keep happening on the same terrain. The same issues, the same framing, the same dynamic where one person raises the complaint and the other person defends. The terrain has been established through repetition. Both of you know your positions. Both of you know the arguments. And the outcome is always the same: exhaustion without resolution, because the terrain does not allow for resolution. It only allows for the reenactment of the established positions. Machiavelli would change the terrain. Instead of engaging with the complaint on the terms it was presented, instead of defending against the accusation in the framework the accusation established, he would shift the conversation to a dimension the established pattern does not cover. Something like, "I do not want to have the same conversation we have had before. I want to understand what you need from me from here forward rather than what I have failed to do in the past." That single reframe, from backward-looking blame to forward-looking solution, changes the terrain. The prepared arguments no longer apply. The scripted defenses no longer fit. And the conversation, for the first time, has a chance to produce something other than the exhaustion that the old terrain was guaranteeing. Here is one more thing about this law that I need you to carry with you. Changing the battlefield is not running. It is not avoiding the fight. It is choosing where the fight happens. And the person who chooses where the fight happens is the person who has already won the most important part of the fight before the first blow has been exchanged. Location is the first move. Terrain is the first advantage. And the person who arrives at the terrain they chose is the person who fights from the strongest possible position, while the person who accepted someone else's terrain fights from the weakest. Comment, "I choose the battlefield." Law 6. Make your loyalty conditional and visible. The person whose loyalty is assumed is the person whose loyalty is never actively earned. My friend, Machiavelli, made an observation about loyalty that most people find uncomfortable to hear. He said that men will always prove untrue to you unless they are kept honest by constraint. Now that sounds cynical, but here is what it actually means for how you should position your loyalty in any significant relationship, professional or personal. If your loyalty is assumed, if the room believes you will remain loyal regardless of how you are treated, then your loyalty has no value, because the room does not need to earn something it already has. Your loyalty becomes furniture, present, noted, and completely ignored in every calculation about what the room needs to offer you in order to keep you engaged. Most people give their loyalty freely and permanently. They commit to a person, a team, an organization, a relationship, and they stay committed regardless of whether the commitment is reciprocated. They believe that unconditional loyalty is a virtue. Machiavelli would say it is a vulnerability, not because loyalty itself is wrong, because unconditional loyalty removes the one thing that keeps the relationship honest, the genuine possibility that the loyalty could be redirected. When the room knows that your loyalty is conditional, that it depends on the quality of what you receive in return, The room treats your loyalty as something that must be actively maintained. And actively maintained loyalty produces better treatment than assumed loyalty. Because the maintaining requires effort, and effort, directed toward keeping you engaged, is the visible evidence that your presence in the dynamic is genuinely valued rather than simply expected. Here is the dirty play. Do not announce the conditionality of your loyalty. Demonstrate it. Let the room see you evaluating. Let the room notice that your engagement fluctuates based on the quality of what the dynamic is returning to you. Let the room observe that when the treatment improves, your investment increases, and when the treatment declines, your investment adjusts accordingly. That observation, made by the room without your ever having to state the terms, communicates everything the room needs to know about the economics of your loyalty. And the economics, once they are understood, change how the room calculates every decision about how to treat you. Here is something practical about implementing conditional loyalty. Start by identifying the one relationship in your life, professional or personal, where your loyalty is most taken for granted. Where the other party has become so accustomed to your unconditional commitment that the commitment has stopped generating reciprocal effort. For the next month, match. Do not exceed. Do not compensate. Match the other party's level of investment exactly, not as a punishment, as an equalization. And watch what happens when the other party, who had calibrated their effort to a level that your excess was subsidizing, suddenly finds that the excess is no longer there. The gap that appears in the relationship, the gap between what was being offered and what was being received, is the truth. Everything before it was the fiction that your unconditional loyalty was constructing. See the truth, and make your next decision from the truth rather than from the fiction. Machiavelli would tell you that the loyalty that is most valued is the loyalty that could leave. And the loyalty that could leave is the loyalty that is treated with the care that unconditional loyalty never receives. Let me give you a Machiavelli proverb that makes this law permanent. He wrote, "Men must be either pampered or crushed, because they will avenge themselves of slight injuries, but cannot do so of severe ones." Now hear this correctly for what it means about loyalty. If you give your loyalty freely and the room treats it carelessly, with slight injuries, with minor disrespect, with the specific quality of taken-for-granted behavior that unconditional loyalty invites, the room will continue treating it carelessly because the slight injuries produce no consequences. Your unconditional loyalty absorbs the slight injuries without cost. And cost-free behavior is behavior that continues indefinitely. But if your loyalty is visibly conditional, if the room understands that slight injuries produce the proportional adjustment of your investment rather than the continued flow of your unconditional commitment, the room calculates differently. The slight injury now has a cost. And cost-bearing behavior is behavior that gets evaluated before it is repeated. Your conditional loyalty does not punish the room for the slight injury. It simply adjusts. And the adjustment, visible and proportional and entirely non-dramatic, communicates everything the room needs to know about the economics of your continued engagement. Comment, "I make my loyalty worth earning," if this shifted how you think about the commitment you have been giving for free. Law 7. The ultimate dirty play is outlasting them. The person who is still standing when the dust clears is the person who won, regardless of how the fight looked while it was happening. This is the last law. This is the one that makes every other law permanent. And it is the simplest and the hardest law in this entire video. Machiavelli wrote that there is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. He was writing about political change, but the principle applies to your life with devastating accuracy. The change you are building, the fearlessness, the strategic completeness, the mental sharpness, will be resisted. By the people who benefited from the old version of you. By the dynamics that were organized around your compliance. By the internal patterns that want the familiar discomfort of the old approach rather than the unfamiliar discipline of the new one. Everything will push you back toward the version of yourself that was easier to manage. And the only thing that determines whether the new version holds is whether you outlast the resistance. Outlasting is the dirtiest play available, not because it is unethical, because it is ruthless. It requires the specific, cold, daily discipline of showing up as the new version when the old version would be easier, of practicing the tools when the tools feel unnatural, of holding the positioning when the positioning produces the temporary discomfort that every genuine change produces before it settles into the new normal. The person who outlasts the resistance wins, not dramatically, not in a single heroic moment. In the accumulating weight of daily consistency that eventually makes the new version undeniable and the old version unrecoverable. Most people make the change for a week. Then the old patterns reassert themselves and the change fades. Machiavelli would never let the change fade. He would hold it. Through the discomfort, through the resistance, through the specific moments where the old version of him would have been easier to deploy and the new version required a discipline that felt almost unbearable. Because he understood something about change that most people learn only after they have abandoned it too many times to count. The discomfort is temporary and the architecture is permanent. The discomfort fades, the architecture holds. And the architecture, once it is built through enough daily repetitions of the new pattern, becomes the default, the new normal. The version of yourself that no longer requires effort because the effort has been converted into structure. And structure, once installed, holds without the continuous expenditure that installed it. Here is the Machiavelli proverb that closes this entire video. He wrote, "Where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great." That is the final word. The willingness to outlast the resistance, to hold the new pattern through the discomfort, to practice the 7 laws in this video daily until they become the way you move through the world rather than the thing you are trying to remember to do. That willingness is the only thing that separates the person who watched this video and changed from the person who watched this video and returned to the old pattern by the end of the week. The willingness is yours now. The laws are yours now. The tools are on the table. Every single one of them. The clean ones you were already using and the dirty ones you were refusing to pick up. Pick them all up. Use them all. And outlast every person who thought your fairness meant you were not capable of playing the game at the level it actually requires. Let me tell you what outlasting looks like at the 30-day mark, the 90-day mark, and the 1-year mark, because you need to know the timeline of the transformation you are building. At 30 days, the new patterns still feel foreign. The fear interrogation practice still requires conscious effort. The dirty tools still feel uncomfortable to hold. The camouflage still feels like hiding rather than positioning. Every day is a choice, and every choice costs discipline. That is normal. That is the price of the first phase. At 90 days, something has shifted. The practices are no longer foreign. The fear interrogation fires faster. The strategic tools feel less uncomfortable and more natural. The camouflage feels less like hiding and more like intelligence. You are still choosing. But the choosing has become easier because the new neural pathways have been laid by 3 months of repetition. The old patterns still fire, but they fire more weakly, and the new patterns override them more quickly. At 1 year, the architecture is built. The practices are not practices anymore. They are how you move. The fear gets read before it gets obeyed. The full toolkit is deployed without the discomfort that accompanied the first deployments. The battlefield gets chosen rather than accepted. The loyalty is conditional without the internal negotiation that conditionality used to require. You are not practicing the 7 laws anymore. You are the person the 7 laws describe. And that person, fearless, strategically complete, and mentally sharper than anyone who thought your fairness meant you were not dangerous, is the permanent version. The version that outlasted the resistance. The version that held through the discomfort until the discomfort became the architecture, and the architecture became the identity. Comment, I outlast everything that resists the change, if this just gave you the final piece that makes everything else in this video hold. My friend, let me close this out with one final thought. These 7 laws are not about becoming someone you are not. They are about completing who you already are. You were already smart. These laws made the smartness strategic. You were already capable. These laws made the capability deployable. You were already good. These laws made the goodness protected by the architecture that goodness requires in order to survive in a world that does not reward it on its own. Machiavelli was not the enemy of good people. He was their armorer. He spent his life building the tools that good people need in order to hold their position against the people who do not share their principles. That is what this video gave you. Not a new character. A new set of tools for the character you already have. And the tools, once you hold them, once you practice the fear interrogation and the strategic completeness and the game redefinition and the camouflage and the battlefield selection and the conditional loyalty and the outlasting, build something that no single tool could build on its own. They build the specific, integrated, self-reinforcing architecture of someone who cannot be beaten by the old methods. The manipulation that used to work does not work because the pattern recognition catches it at the opening. The intimidation that used to freeze you does not freeze you because the fear gets read as data rather than obeyed as instruction. The undermining that used to erode your position does not erode it because your position is no longer built on the terrain they prepared for. It is built on terrain they do not even know exists.
Machiavelli wrote one more thing that I need to leave you with. He said, I am not interested in preserving the status quo. I want to overthrow it. That is not violence. That is the specific, settled, non-negotiable commitment of someone who has decided that the way things have been going is not the way things are going to continue. The status quo served the people who designed it. You did not design it. You accepted it. And the accepting is over now. And the tools, used daily, practiced consistently, held through the resistance that every genuine change produces, will make you the thing that the title of this video promised. Fearless in the specific moments where fear has been making your decisions. Dirty in the specific sense of being strategically complete rather than strategically limited. And mentally sharper than anyone who thought your fairness meant you were not paying attention. Machiavelli would look at you right now, at the person who has absorbed 7 laws, and who is sitting with the specific combination of discomfort and clarity that genuine learning always produces. And he would say one thing. He would say, the person you were when you pressed play on this video is not the person you are now. Something has been added. Something has been installed. The architecture is not complete. The architecture is never complete, but the foundation has been laid. And a foundation, once it is laid, holds everything that gets built on top of it. Build on it, daily, through every interaction, through every moment where the old version would have played clean and the new version plays complete. Through every decision where the fear would have stopped you and the data now moves you. Build, and let the building become who you are. Like this video if any of these 7 laws gave you something you did not have before you pressed play. Share it with someone who is still playing clean in a dirty game. They need the full set of tools, not just the comfortable ones. And subscribe to this channel because the next video goes directly into the advanced application of these laws in the specific, high-stakes moments where the dirty play is needed most and where the clean player always loses.